Testing. What's up? I'm Jacob Litzo, your Elixir Mentor, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Elixir Mentor Podcast. This is where we discuss everything related to Elixir, from interviews with enthusiasts, pioneers in the community, to innovative projects and libraries shaping Elixir's future. Today, I'm thrilled to have Daniil Popov, creator of Phoenix Analytics, an embedded plug-and-play analytics tool for Phoenix applications. Daniil has developed a lightweight solution that seamlessly integrates with Phoenix projects. Daniil, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. Do you want to just give yourself a little introduction of who you are?
Yeah, I'll try. Thank you very much. First of all, for inviting me. So that's great to be here. Yeah, my name is Daniil. I used to write quite some Elixir back in the day, but then I stopped for 5-6 years. I had quite a break, I would say. And I was primarily doing backends and, managing other people and helping them actually to build big things. And for the last year, I started writing Elixir again. And so glad to be back, I would say. And the library, which came out, I think it was almost months ago, that was a coincidence of very random events, honestly. Like, I would never thought that I'm gonna make a open source, like serious open source project, which, going to get more than 10 stars. But looks like people like it. And I'm planning to develop it further.
Yeah, it's awesome. I checked out the GitHub today, and I feel like you have like over 200 stars now.
Yep.
People are liking it. And I always love pretty README files, and your markdown is beautiful.
Honestly, no one going to read a book without a nice cover. So
that's true.
That's how it's supposed to be. Just follow great examples, and I didn't invent anything new, honestly.
No, but hey, it's good. I feel like people usually, that's like where you slack, right? You put in all your effort into writing an awesome code, and then you're like, oh, well, I guess I should do my README.
What was the joke about Haskell code? It's so great that no one ever going to run it again, because it's so great.
That's funny. I don't know that, but now I want to look it up. I should say, guys, I'm sorry for being like 12 minutes late today. I had many technical difficulties, and Daniil is very patient with waiting for me to figure them all out. So
I was just cheering up on the background. So
yeah. So like, what made you want to create an analytics tool that you integrate directly into a Phoenix project versus just using something that already exists? What problem were you trying to solve? Or
the problem, I would say, number one, I love to own data and have a control over what I'm running and what I'm using. And I think nowadays it's becoming more and more important to own your data and to not rely on, let's say, third-party analytics. And I think the second main reason I wanted to have something what I can set up within one commit, push it, and I have it. So that was kind of the mindset which and the goal which I wanted to achieve. By secret, I can tell if you add just the dependency into your mix file and just integrate the plug, like the tracer, it's gonna work. So you just barely need like 2 lines, and that's it. Like configuration parts, it's to make your life a bit more customizable. But honestly, it's like 2 lines of code which you need to add, and you have it up and running.
That's awesome. And then does that include like your admin dash and everything? Like all the routes are there? And
okay, 3 lines router. I forgot. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, that's impressive. And then As far as like events and stuff, do you just create custom events for specific things you want to track, like button clicks, or that's all taken care of?
Honestly, I thought about this, but amount of customization which you will need to actually do like goes a bit more exponentially than linearly. And what I'm tracing at the moment, like all of the requests which are coming to your server. So if you, let's say, have a single page application and you're calling your backend through the API, obviously that's not gonna work. So, but if you use, let's say, live view, if you use the HTML controllers and things like that, it's going to work good enough. Like for my purposes, when I was developing it, let's say I have 3 or 4 projects, and they're very simple. All of them live view, some of them I think using HTML a bit. And what I wanted to see, how many users, how often they visit, through like when they visit. I mean, means during which part of the day they use it, and things like that. And honestly, that was kind of my goal to get this data. And all other charts were done, like later on, just to maybe enrich a bit, like amount of requests and things like that. And for the button clicks, you would need to have heavily rely on JavaScript, I think, integration of a live view.
Like a JS hook or something?
Yeah, probably. And that's not where I wanted to go, because I like backend guy 100%.
Yeah.
And when I need to write some JavaScript, I always have like some itchy feeling starting. I don't know why, but yeah, I'm trying to overcome this.
I'm the same way. I don't, what is your background? Do you come from JavaScript, or what did you do before?
No, never.
No,
And
because I came from like Node.js, and it's hard for me to go and write JavaScript hooks, and it's not the best, but at least we have the ability to do it for at least like client side things, right? But it is tough to go back to the JavaScript world.
I mean, maybe I would love to, but I have a feeling that in the last maybe 5 to 10 years, like front end itself became so complicated. I mean, backend as well, right? I mean, these new tools, technologies, they like flooded. And since I was always focusing more on the backend, so I'm feel much more free on the backend side of the server than like on the client. Even though I had many attempts to write clients myself, but I think you need to spend really good amounts of time to master it, I would say.
Yeah, I like backend so much more. I'm just so much more comfortable. I'm the same way. And then like last week I did a live stream where I was, cleaning up a component and just like struggling through, the tailwind and everything. Someday, I think if I make a fool of myself enough on live streams, I'll become a better front end dev.
I mean, the thing is, I must say it's very, very much depends on your goals, right? If you would like to be a full stack, let's say, engineer outside maybe of your professional scope, I'm up for that, because like I had a bunch of experiments. I made the 2 games for the Apple Watch, and I was like, okay, I never done game dev, right? And most of us as developers became developers because one day we had a dream to write a game which gonna conquer the whole world, right?
Yep.
We're gonna make millions out of it. I was a bit more realistic. So I had this dream, but I would never try it out. and I decided just to make it, okay, I never use Swift. I never touched the Apple ecosystem, like to write clients. And, I spent 6 hours and I made the MVP. So, and it
Nice. I love
Like,
that. Yeah.
Space Invaders, where like you can manipulate with the crown.
Okay. Well, that's awesome.
It's as well on my GitHub. You can take a look maybe
Nice. I
later.
love that. I used to only write Swift. I was a big iOS dev for a minute. But yeah, we all started to, the shiny object of game dev, right? And then we all start just building websites or ERP things and like super boring enterprise level software.
Yeah, yeah. On very, very outdated versions of even pleasant software, but if it's very outdated, I'm not sure that you want to write in it anymore.
Right. No, I agree. What was your like what made you decide on the features you wanted in your first release of your
Yeah.
Phoenix analytics?
Um, I will maybe start with the DuckDB because I think that's the most abnormal thing.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously, once you bootstrap the new Phoenix app, let's say you would like to have a Phoenix up and running, use Ecto, live view, you have three choices, right? You have SQLite, you have the most popular choice Postgre, and MySQL. So I was like, all right, none of these databases honestly fit for analytics purposes. Okay, some people might say you can install some extensions on the Postgre and etc. I 100% agree with that, but it's not plug and play experience anymore, right? And then I remembered that once in a company, like 2-3 companies before, there were attempts to use DuckDB, but it was like very, very early beginning and was a bit laggy, and we didn't really end up using it. But what really impressed me, it was very fast. Like to analyze, let's say, million rows and give you a reply back, like with all the sum average functions whatsoever. It was on like average 2 milliseconds, right? And if you take Postgre with the same data, absolutely same conditions, and run like almost same query, just like change the syntax a bit, it's going to take up to 2-3 seconds. And I was like, okay, so million requests, that's a lot for indie website. And actually 1 million requests end up in the 90 megabyte file, which I think everyone able to host whenever, like, and whatever they want. If it's a self-hosted solution, if it's managed clouds, I think it's, it fits very
So
well.
how does
And
DuckDB
I
work?
decided just to stick to it. Yeah.
Is it just like, is it embedded in your tool, or do I have to have it set up in my project to work? Or how does okay.
You don't need to set up absolutely anything. It's just as a SQLite, like in terms of how it
Okay.
works.
Yeah.
It's in process database. So it's persistent to the disk. But the biggest difference between, let's say, SQLite and DuckDB, that it's a column-based database. So which means for the analytics, it's just blazingly fast. Because when I was doing the first release, like all these widgets, which you see on the dashboard, I didn't even bother to write to make them asynchronous. So all of them are synchronous in the first release, and no one even noticed because the reply from DuckDB is instant.
Wow.
Like, I even forgot to do this. Like when I built an MVP, I was like, okay, I'll just shovel in a bit more these widgets, and locally, of course, I didn't notice any, delays.
Was there anything that you could do to notice the delays though, or not really?
Like using DuckDB, no.
Wow, that's impressive. That's pretty cool. Now, I didn't really know what DuckDB was until I saw it in your documentation, and it is actually made for like being an analytics database, which is pretty cool.
I think one of them, I mean, I wouldn't say the most popular, but where I would use DuckDB if you have larger piles of data which you need to go through. Let's say overnight you have some pipelines which are aggregating certain things. So you put them in whatever storage, in whatever data lake, and then have DuckDB on top to aggregate and analyze this data. So it's usually used like with some other technologies like dbt and I don't know, Parquet on S3 when you have a lot of different files spread around, maybe even for the logs. And then you have this DuckDB, which is embeddable, like in process database, which can really fast analyze like huge amounts of data.
What was like the most challenging thing when you first started implementing like the plug for request tracking or any of that? And did you have to worry about like a performance knock for your actual Phoenix app?
Yeah. I think it's in the past, I was already doing this, but not on the Phoenix. I was working at D Labs where we used to work on businessoffashion.com, which was a PHP website, but with like 5 million views a day, sometimes, maybe even sometimes 15, 20 million views. And so it became a high loaded project. And we obviously had to do a lot of analytics. Mm-hmm. And we had our own in-house analytics, which was actually cheaper than to pay Google Advanced Analytics. So, and we had all these terabytes of data flying in every second. And obviously, there are some tricks how you can avoid performance issues. The number one, you take what you need from the request and then just throw it in the new process. I mean, like the spawn the task. I was playing with that. But when I was doing Vegeta testing, I saw that there is a bit of a memory spike. So, and then I actually realized that when you run this con function, I forgot, like this send before request. So essentially, like I don't block the request to be processed.
Okay.
So I do it in parallel. And actually, once I figure out how this plug architecture works, so I just made the premature optimization by adding task spawn, and I just removed it, like task.start. And I just removed it and then compared the performance. And it was equal. So
so you don't have to worry about much.
No.
That's honestly awesome. As long as you're not having a blocking task run.
No. And as well, just, I think when I was testing it, obviously you have some synthetic app, right, on which you are playing around, and you cannot really cover all the cases. And then I put it on my production, and I saw that like it was failing some requests for actual users, and I was like, aha. So and I found out like much more cases to cover, so I hope I covered all of them. And so that's thanks God I have my own production and to test my own users. And
yeah, and then you can just push directly to something in production, right? And just go.
I mean, it's not I don't know, like a super popular website, but still,
Yeah. Well, it's always good to have a production environment, right? Everything functions a little different.
Because the real user's gonna find something for sure. Like,
yeah, exactly. I saw a funny meme the other day. It was like a developer testing his code, like pushing a stroller exactly how he meant it. It was like, what it was like a stroller connected to a skateboard with a baby in the stroller. You might have seen it.
Yeah.
But it's hilarious. So it's like the dev testing it. Like a dev only tests his code the way, he thought about using it up here, right? And then QA pretty much tests it the same way, but, just for the intended purpose. And then it was like in production, someone was like doing a kickflip with the baby in the stroller.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's just real life. I remember I used to be in manufacturing, and I would do a lot of like automation and like PLC programming. And, you'd set up, your little touch screen, your HDMI touch screen, whatever you want to call it. And like I would start my processes the way I, intended them to start. But the second I told someone else to use like the new feature, they were like all over the place trying to like multi-touch and like do all these things at the same time. And it just kind of opens your eyes. Like you have to prevent everything from happening if you don't want it to happen.
Yeah, I mean, the happy part, it's usually not enough.
Right. And yeah, you would realize you did not think of every scenario when you wrote the feature, which is pretty funny. I know we kind of touched on this, but so Postgres is normally, the go-to database for Phoenix projects. And when you include DuckDB, and then I'm assuming your Phoenix projects are still using Postgres.
Yeah.
Are there any things that you have to handle to have both databases in a project?
So that was the ultimate goal number one. It must be plug and play. So no, you don't need to handle absolutely anything except your project database itself, and that's it. So essentially in the second version where I added PostgreSQL support, actually what I've done on the background, I have still DuckDB running to do all the heavy lifting and do the data analytics. Just it reads not from the file anymore, because let's say if you're using DuckDB file, it's going to read from your disk. But in case, let's say you have cluster of the apps, or you have like some backends start and stopping and whatsoever, and to keep your data persistent without any duplication and etc. So I just put everything in the PostgreSQL, which is, let's say, managed by you, and store all the data there. And then DuckDB plugs in to the same connection and pulls the data from there, which is apparently X times faster if you would do it on native Postgres.
Oh, interesting. So I was just going to ask, for like long-term data storage, it will persist to Postgres then?
Yeah.
That's cool. So all I have to do is worry about my database backup, and I'll have everything I need.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, nice. So DuckDB is kind of like just the middleman to keep things fast for like real time, essentially.
I mean, I was comparing writes. I mean, I don't think that you really need to compare writes, because what I've done, I have a small service which I call Batcher, because what it does, it just batch the logs and stores, I think every second I made. So it's either batch of 1,000 requests, either every second. So whatever comes first, it's gonna do the inserts either to the DuckDB, either to the PostgreSQL based on how you configure it. And yeah, it shouldn't really, mean much, because even if you lose, let's say 10% of those requests, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're still going to get more or less meaningful data, who is using your app, how they're using it. I mean, for example, if you see Google Analytics, how it's called now, GTM4, whatever.
Yeah.
They no longer show you actual numbers. They show you the trend.
Oh, interesting.
And I mean, I don't like it personally.
Yeah.
I want to see the real number. If 1,000 people came to me on Monday, I want to see that it's 1,000 people came on Monday, right?
Mm-hmm.
If it's going to be 50 users discrepancy, probably, you will live with this, because probably you have some deployments where you will need to stop your application for I don't know, a couple of seconds and then run it again. If you have, let's say, single app set up on a VPS, right? Whatever happens in these 2 seconds, let it happen.
No, yeah, that for sure. I don't use Google Analytics, or like I should say, I rarely do. But I feel like that's weird to only show trending data versus, like, you should have the option of having both, right? They probably don't want the responsibility of keeping it all.
Yeah, that's I think that's what we discussed at the very beginning. I want to have all the data on my end so that I'm responsible for what's going on, and I want to see the exact numbers.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, like 50 visitors would be a big number to my website.
I mean, in percentage, right? If you lose 1% of tracking,
yeah, for sure.
Because if you have, let's say, customer, like I had a quite interesting bug. I was trying to detect iPad users, like iPad and tablet users. So there is 2 ways to do it, right? So the number one way, you have this user agent string. So apparently each device, each browser, they have a unique combination for this user agent string. But you need to have a database, which you're going to maintain almost on monthly level, or pay someone to maintain it for you, like there is services, and extract it from there. I was trying to use a couple of libraries for this, but they were enormously slow. Like to go through this database and find that this user string is actually an iPad user.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was almost 1 second to do the lookup. And of course, I had to ditch out this solution. It was way too slow.
You could almost have it as, well, maybe just not a real-time feature. It could be updated later, or could you not really do that cleanly?
I think properly, yes. But what I found out, so I took, I think, almost all the most popular tablets, like iPads, Samsung Tab, and some Huawei and some other manufacturers. All of them have PAD in their user agent.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, I'm gonna stick with the normal regex and it's gonna work. And when I test it, yeah, it works. So that's
nice.
it.
I mean, that's usually all you need, right? It's always usually a very simple solution for a complicated problem, right?
And I was like, since the idea of this app, I'm not planning to compete, let's say, with the Google Analytics, or how it's called, plausible.
Yeah, plausible.
Plausible.
I believe that's how it's said. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not planning to compete with those guys because, they do that for years. There is a team of great developers behind, and on some projects I use their solution because if I see that it's a better fit, I'm gonna stick with them and give them, I don't know, $9 a month, right?
Yeah, for up to like 50 projects, it's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, exactly. But for the super small thing where you don't need to manage anything and you don't know if this website gonna survive or not, even if it's gonna survive, I think my solution able to handle maybe 10 million requests easily. I mean, it depends on your disk size. So,
right.
But yeah, I think for the beginning, it's gonna do the job. And if you don't have million visitors every day, I think the solution can stay.
There's something to, like you were saying at the beginning too, to just owning your data, especially for smaller projects. Like if it's an in-house app or even just not a heavily trafficked web application, you're probably better off having your own data.
Yeah, but plus you don't need to introduce. I mean, I remember when Google was forcing everyone to switch from Universal Analytics to GT4, G4, whatsoever. Like you need to go change it, check all the places where you have it, rename it, update it, test it. And back in the day, I had a team almost of like 30 developers. And this project took us like 3 months, I think, from start to end, just to replace tags and behavioral. And we had external people coming in, helping us to figure out how to set up some funnels. I remember all this nightmare, and I was like, oh my God.
That's horrible. And I feel like analytics is one of those things you don't want to go back and do it. You don't want to go back and fix it. Like that's the worst. That's like, it'll never happen if you don't put analytics in when you're building something. At least that's what I always tell people. So I'm always really good at adding my analytics, like events and whatever you're adding, as I build that object. Like if I add a call to action on a website, I put my plausible event tag in there right away, or you'll forget about it, or you won't do it ever.
Exactly. So you wanted to do it once and forget. So
exactly.
That's kind of the principle which I try to stick to, and I don't know.
Yeah.
Looks like there is at least 200, a bit more than 200 people who found, the same.
Yeah, no, I think it's an awesome project, and I think it's great for people that don't want to spend money on analytics when they're just starting out. Like if you're bootstrapped and you're a product not being used, at least you're tracking analytics. Because I tell everyone you have to track analytics from the beginning, even if you only have one user or you don't know if that one user is even using your app.
No, because honestly, I think people often confuse what does it mean to be popular. I think if you have, let's say, very popular website which has millions of views, right? But you don't know how to monetize those users, or simply, I don't know, you have a documentation page or something which you can't really monetize, right? Okay, you got a huge amount of traffic, you're super popular, but what? And sometimes you can have 10 customers who exactly looking for this specific thing, which might be very niche. And I don't know, each user going to spend 10,000 euros a month with you, right? If it's some niche B2B product.
Yeah. Quality over quantity, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And I have quite a lot of examples. And the company where I work at the moment, we're like super small. I think it's like 5 or 6 people. But how to say, they're super well known in a very, very narrow circles.
Mm-hmm.
And 5-6 people able to run quite complicated things which are heavily used by professionals and normal customer not even going to see us on the radar. And so our website not going to have million views.
Yeah, and I mean most websites aren't, right? Most products aren't.
Exactly.
If you're doing it right, you have a very niche audience.
Yeah, I mean, I think targeting is more important rather than popularity, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Now I want to look it up. I saw a funny meme today, and I don't want to get it wrong. Let me see if I can find it. If you want to reach a large audience, appeal to idiots.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought that was entertaining. I thought it was a little funny because, Elixir is such a small community, and I think everyone wants, the reach and popularity of, other technology stacks and, all of that other stuff. But at the same time, I think it's a good thing that it's like a steady, slow growth.
I think, the big issue of Elixir community, exactly what we just spoke, because amount of people you need to develop website or I don't know, whatever product with the complexity X, right? You need for sure much less people if you would do it in PHP or Golang
Yeah.
or I don't know, any other language. And that's why maybe Elixir community going to remain, let's say, small compared to some other communities. And obviously we will produce less open source projects. So, and instead of, flooding like NPM, for example, that's
Yeah.
in my opinion the most flooded package manager.
Oh, it's insane.
That's insane. And okay, let's keep amount of packages very narrow, very small, but all of them would be usable and maintainable. I think that's a nice trade-off.
Yeah, it's nice that you only need a handful of packages out of the box, right, to start a Phoenix project. And I think that people don't realize how important that is for at least like app security.
Yeah, exactly. Because I used to work with the PHP quite some years ago, and once you figure out that you have some script running on version 5.4, MySQL 3 dot something, and amount of security vulnerabilities there. Oof. And
Yep.
I don't want to end up in that world.
Well, and like out of the box, at least like, with JavaScript frameworks and things, you'll start a new project and have thousands of critical warnings or errors or security vulnerabilities. I forget what they're called, but just out of the box, and you can't even go and fix any of them because they're from your dependencies.
Yeah, that's very dangerous. And actually, in the Elixir community, so far, I didn't see like any bloated projects.
Yeah, you rarely
in
do.
the world.
Yeah. No, I like it. I mean,
Yes.
that's why I like Elixir. You can, like kind of back to the point where I was like, I suck at front end. Like it's just, I'm not fast at it. I can do it, but mostly like UI, right? And Tailwind things. So CSS related things, I'll be really slow at. But the one reason I want to get better is it's really nice when you have a project idea and you don't rely on anyone to help you with the front end. You can kind of just build out an entire MVP to something and have an awesome project. And you need one Elixir engineer to do it.
Exactly. I mean, you as well have server-side frameworks like in Ruby on Rails. You as well, you don't need to write a single line of JavaScript code if you do everything on the server. But I think with the Elixir, you get, how to say, you can do a lot of things way faster than in other frameworks. Like you have everything working out of the box for you. You have generators, you have everything. So, you just combine things together and you have MVP almost in a couple of days.
Yeah. Yeah. I randomly decided, I don't know, a lot of weird things happened. And then I just got this really good idea. And I was like, wow, I could save so much money if I made my own website hosting platform. And so I built one using Phoenix, and like I'm routing through plugs for, different domains and things for my customers. And I had an MVP working in like 4 days.
Exactly.
And I didn't know what I was doing really. I kind of knew what I was doing, but I figured everything out and had something pretty functional in like 4 days of just messing around.
Oh, I mean, if you built web servers before and web apps, obviously fundamentals are the same. You're not
Yeah,
going to change them. You cannot change HTTP protocol to something else.
Yeah, exactly.
And once you worked, let's say, with the Ruby on Rails, Symfony, Flask in Python or whatsoever, and you know a bit of a functional programming, you switch to Elixir and you literally need like a couple of days to make something meaningful. And even though, okay, so I have this bad relations with the JavaScript, but I was really proud when I made the infinite scroll on the live view. Like when you scroll to the bottom, it triggers automatically to load like next object.
Oh, yeah.
It took me like 10 lines of JavaScript to make a hook. And I was like, all right, so 10 lines, enough for today. It's working great.
There you go. Yeah. I have like a gist clone project that I'm working through on YouTube, and I have quite a bit of JavaScript hooks on there. And like I have one for using like highlight.js for the code snippets, but I kind of want to go back because I just, what is it? I think it's the makeup library that is really good for server-side rendering of, basically it's doing the code highlighting server-side instead of using highlight.js. And that's pretty cool. But then the other hook that I wrote was I have dynamic line numbers that are just growing, basically two text boxes next to each other, right? So as you scroll through code, I'm just like matching the other one has to scroll with it. And I had to do JavaScript for that as well. But there's probably no avoiding JavaScript completely, unfortunately.
Yeah, but it's not like writing. I remember we had one project in Angular. I think we had 20 front-end devs on that project. When I needed to change something there, I was like, okay, guys, you know what? That's where I have a knowledge limit. I need some help because, I tweak some API on my side, like on the back end. And then I had to go to front-end devs and like, hey, you know what? I could not find out where it goes. Please help me out.
Yeah.
And I think it's like two extremes. You have, and you can achieve actually quite a lot of things on the client side. But in most of the cases, you simply don't need it, in my opinion. Like if you have some simple website, GitHub still server-side rendering. No one died because of it, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, the hesitation you want to have with doing too much client side is just site performance overall, right? You don't want a slow loading website, especially if you're on like an older mobile device or tablet that doesn't have as much power as a desktop computer or whatever you may do. You might have limitations, right?
That's true. But the issue with the old, let's say, devices that they stop supporting modern JavaScript at some point.
That's true. Yeah.
Then you're screwed.
That's true. Yeah. Because nothing will work.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a fine line. Yeah. It's a fine line. What do you use JavaScript for and what do you do server side? Because you still want things to be fast. I feel like I struggle with it. I don't always probably do the right thing. But then through trial and error and use cases, you probably can dial it in.
I mean, with the JavaScript, I do understand all the, why it exists, right? And why we need to use it. And even, for example, for the dashboard, right? When I started researching what's available to do the graphs in Elixir, I think there is like one library which is quite maintained. It's Vega Lite, which is used in Livebook.
Okay.
But I think in VAP version of it, like if you use it, on a page, it's going to output you SVG things. And then you need to do a lot of manual work, like tooltips and all of these. And I wanted to reuse things, right? Because most of the charts, if you open them, you'll see that there is like 2, maybe 3 different types of them, and I just reused, the code. And when I figure out, okay, so there is nothing available on Elixir itself, like let's see the JavaScript world, right? Because probably people made a bunch of different graphs, and I started with the live view and a couple of libraries there. But then when I saw that ShadCN added the graphs, I was like, okay, no brainer. So we take them.
Nice.
And just use the existing ones.
I want to know, charting.
I think there is now one library which is being built, Tramax, I think it's called. I saw on Twitter, like someone is developing for Phoenix apps.
Is it Context?
I don't remember.
Context is a simple server-side charting package for Elixir. See these demos. It looks really cool. And it works nicely in live view. Cool. I'm going to have to check this out. What did you end up using? You're using JavaScript?
Yeah, I ended up using ShadCN UI. I don't know how to pronounce this website correctly. So they added into their components like very nice charts. And since I really suck at designing things, I was like, well, very talented people made nice components and designed them well. Why not to use this superpower?
Well, I agree. And like something like charting would be a project in itself just to implement it, right?
Yeah, exactly. The only thing which I still don't really like without, of course I optimized it a bit, but the raw JavaScript file is around 600 kilobytes.
Okay.
Like all together. So I embedded it directly on the HTML, zip it and whatsoever, plus HTTP actually does some optimizations on the fly. So it's ended up 300 something in the end.
Okay.
But still, like for the page, just displaying a couple of charts, it's a bit too much. But since it's just, let's say, dev route, I was like, okay, I'm not going to bother that much. But if it would be my landing page, let's say, and you have 0.5 megabyte of JavaScript, I would think.
Yeah, it might end up taking over a second to load.
Yeah, exactly. So, but since it's a dev page, I was like, okay, I'm not going to bother too much and make it nice and look good. But
you can strangely get overly obsessed with performance, and I have that problem. I'll like obsess over my page loads and things, and like sometimes you just can't control it.
I used to work in the past on let's say big projects and where performance was really critical. Like we had millions of users and visitors, and I think Amazon calculated that every 100 milliseconds in a page load costs you 15% of sales or something like this.
I believe that.
And yes, it's actually like this, because most of customers, if it loads more than, 300 milliseconds, they just quit.
Yeah.
They're not going to wait for your spinners to load till the end. They just close.
Dude, that reminds me that when you said the spinner, I worked with, he was the product guy. It was a bootstrapped startup, right? And he was the product/designer guy who also wanted to learn how to code. And he had this side project that he was building, and he wanted me to check it out. And, I pulled it up, and he had a really cool loading spinner, right? It was like a very fancy animation. And I was like, dude, it takes so long to load. Like, what's going on? and he put a delay in to load because he wanted everyone to watch his cool spinner. And we always like joked about it that I forgot what we called him. He had like a 2-second delay. And so we would always make fun of his 2-second delay, and we'd reference it for like years and years after he did that. And, to his benefit, it was a really cool animation, but at the end of the day, no one wants to watch your animations. They just want your pages to load.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's as well very important to understand that from one user till million users, that's, let's say, one problem. From 1 million to 10 million users which visit your website, I don't know, either per month, either per day, it's another scope of problems, right? And then from 10 million and further, let's say like Netflix, Amazon, Google, that's like a next range of issues. And I have a feeling that a lot of people, a lot of developers, especially at the beginning, start thinking like 10 million views or even more. Like let's be able to support all of this tomorrow. You don't.
Yeah, they over optimize or over
exactly
optimize too soon, I think is the yeah.
Premature optimization.
Yeah, there we go. But I think just engineers in general, they want to scale, but in reality, you have a lot of different problems you're going to hit before you even reach any crazy numbers, if you even ever do.
Exactly. Or maybe you will, like as well what we discussed at the beginning, maybe you will never reach it because you'll find your perfect niche, which kind of make you rich. And I don't know, you're not going to hit million users.
I mean, honestly, I'll take 10 clients to make me rich over 1 million users.
Exactly. I don't remember who told, like, what was the whole story. Like, it's much more easy to sell one Ferrari over 100 Renault cars.
Yeah.
So
it's probably the same amount of effort, right?
Yeah.
I've been going through the struggle of becoming a salesman and marketing. And I think it's what every engineer doesn't want to be good at. But if you're selling your own products, you have to. And it's the worst thing ever. And when you start realizing the amount of outreach you have to do for one close and you start having metrics and numbers behind it, you have to hear hundreds and hundreds of no's for your one yes. And
I agree with this because for the last, I think it's already more than 1 year, a bit. I was doing fractional CTO where I had to reach out myself and, do the sales and, talk to the startups. For the first 2-3 months, I was trying to do it like you saying, right? You do the cold outreach, you try to reach the people, go on the call. So by metrics, my reply rate was 0.01%, right?
Yeah.
And then I was like, hell no, I'm not gonna do this. And on the scope of one person company, right? I was one man band. I'm not going to do this. So essentially, I ended up with it's called Friends channel. I just told to them, guys, I'm open to work. Let me know, and that's how essentially I made all my sales in the last year.
Mm-hmm.
But each time, I still have a website running, even though I stopped doing fractional CTO for various reasons. Sometimes I get a lot of customers who reach out to me with amazing proposals. We give you equity of non-existing company, which we even didn't start it. We just have an idea, but we give you equity and you become our fractional CTO. I was like, okay, what would be my responsibilities? You develop entire product from A to Z, ship it, and we give you 50%. I was like,
it's very tempting, I think that is too common of a story, right? I actually had to Well, sometimes I don't even like telling certain people what I do for a living because the second they find out you like build apps or anything, they're like, "Oh, I have such a good app idea." But you have to sign an NDA. I was like, dude, well, one, I don't care enough to hear about your $1 million app idea, if I can say this in the nicest way possible. And I'm not going to sign an NDA, and I do not have time to steal your idea.
Exactly.
And like, I've had so many people approach me and be like, dude, I have a really great proposal. It's like, yeah, you build the entire product and you can have 50% equity. I'd be like, why don't I get 100% equity and build the product myself? But yeah, those stories, they happen way too often. And I think it'd be really funny to like write a book about all the $1 million ideas that I've been told. And then you could just kind of like, it could be a really funny book. You could break it down on how they wouldn't work.
I think there is a super nice book. While I was writing Golang, I think it's called 100 Go mistakes or something like this, or like 100 things to avoid. And essentially, there is like 100 bad things which can happen in the code, and essentially the author explains like anti-patterns and things like this and how to avoid them. I think it would be a really interesting book, like about such conversations which all the developers sometimes are getting about this $1 million ideas.
Yeah, it reminds me of one of them. One of my buddies, we were having a few drinks one night, and we didn't end up launching it, but we were joking about starting a podcast, and he started like launching all his ideas at me. And one of them is like, well, what if you're, the boomer generation, or it was like whatever generations where they start like, they're old enough where kids are moving out of the house and you start having extra space in your house. He's like, instead of like an Airbnb where you rent a room, what if you just rent space for storage? And I was like, and like, we went into this whole rant, and it's just like ideas like that. Like, I will rent you 12 inches of storage to store your golf clubs. And those are the examples of like $1 million ideas I would be approached with. And then like, you should help me build this app.
You know what? All the jokes aside, so the city where I currently live, it's Luxembourg. Mm-hmm. I think that's gonna work.
Do people not have space?
The price per square meter here, it's like 3, maybe 4 salaries, and maybe even more.
There you go.
Exactly, because one day I was calculating how much I need, to own my car instead of doing like car renting and whatsoever. Mm-hmm. So it's ended up that garage for the car are going to be twice more expensive than the actual car leasing, gas, insurance altogether. So we have quite limited space here.
Well, there you go. You have your idea. Take it and run. Just rent. And if you have a vehicle, you can rent trunk space too.
Yeah. I will put it on PDF, and I'm gonna go to all VC in my town.
There you go. I have $1 million idea. Delucial has a funny, I probably butchered your name and I'm sorry about that, but he goes, how about devs offering 10% equity to the guy with the idea? Devs seeking $1 million idea will give 10% equity. And
that's nice.
That's a much better approach. I agree. And then for that 10%, you can sell the product once it's built.
Yeah, after many years. Yeah, why not?
Yeah. But like, I think that's always the funniest thing. People are so worried about a developer stealing their idea, even if it is $1 million idea. If the developer that you're telling it to doesn't want to, like, how much you have to put almost 100% of your time into an idea that you want to build, launch, and make successful. So like, you're not going to build even great ideas.
I mean, for example, honestly, I believe in plain statistics, right? If you take, how it's called, the boilerplate, ship fast from Mark, which he's selling. Like he got almost $1 million right out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So how many sales he made, and how many of those who bought became a millionaire,
Right.
Because this is like the target audience for the people who dreaming to become a millionaire by launching a successful product. I mean, not even a millionaire, but let's say that it's going to pay all your current bills. For me, that's already, rich enough. If you have passive income, which covers your active spending, you're rich. That's it.
Yeah.
And I don't see much of those,
Well, I think like just the environment of what you see a lot of too, like lots of coaching to coach you to become rich and all these things, right? And everyone that is a customer of these programs isn't rich yet. So they probably they're not even willing to put in the grind to do what you have to do. Even if you're being told, like you could be given the blueprint and you're still not going to do it.
I think in a puzzle of, let's say, successful product idea is, I don't know, like how to say it.
Like 10% of the problem, like 10% of the
maybe
success.
Even less.
Yeah.
I think even less. And in order to increase your success rate or luck, it's only put more work. There is unfortunately no other way.
Yeah. Well, launching and producing a successful product is hard, right? And I do think like one, it takes skill, a lot of grit and grind, and then a little bit of luck as well, just because I think luck is probably just, you have to be prepared for the circumstance that like happens to make you go viral or whatever it may be, get you on the radar, right? And I always thought it was funny, like, when people talk about people being lucky because they had a certain opportunity that like came across their desk or whatever, maybe they met a founder, got a really good job, whatever. But at that moment in time, when that lucky circumstance happened, they still had to be prepared to step up to the plate and use the skills they already have. So
definitely
luck is only a small percentage of,
and I think luck, I mean, I would not even use this term. Honestly, of course, obviously, I heard, I used to work in logistics quite a lot. And there was, I don't know how much of this story is true, but CEO of FedEx in mid-80s, when the company was just like starting, they were about to go bankrupt because they had to pay for airplane stay in the airport and to pay for the gas, and it was like 25 grand or something, and they had to pay like next day because they were like invoice deadline. And they had $5,000 on their account, on a bank account of the company, right? And CEO of FedEx withdrew this money, went to Vegas same night, won in casino, next day put this money back on the bank account and paid, right? I'm not sure how much of the story is true. Maybe it's a bit exaggerated.
If any of that's true, that's a wild story.
Yeah, and okay, let it be, but how many people lost this way? Okay, you're one out of million who saved the company, and I mean, you need to be CEO of FedEx first of all to be able to do such thing.
Yeah.
And how many people lost, let's say, in casino, right? Same way.
For sure. I would absolutely 100% lose going to gamble.
I would never even try. I
That's
studied
too
math
stressful.
and physics, so
Yeah.
unfortunately.
You know the odds too well.
Yeah, exactly. But still, each time when we talk about like casino or wherever, when I see, I'm like, oh my God, 9 hands in a blackjack and I'm a millionaire. Just like 9 hands straight and I'm done.
There you go. That's all you have to do.
Exactly. But no.
That's funny. But yeah, I think it's funny, like, because I've had friends that have actually had really good product ideas, and where I told them, I was like, look, I can build this for you, but you should go find funding or find a way to pay for it. And then they're like, well, if it takes me a couple months to do that, you better not steal this idea. It's like, even if I wanted to, like, I can't afford to steal the idea because I have all my other projects that I'm working on. So,
plus, I think in order to steal an idea, you need to be as passionate as the idea owner, which
exactly.
Usually never the case.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I'm passionate about my projects, but then if someone tells me a good idea, like, I get it from like their viewpoint. But yeah, if I'm not as passionate as you about what you want to build, it's going to fail. Like, I might be able to build something, but I'm not going to like hang in there and see it to the finish line.
Push it further. Like, you're not going to carry it.
You're going to burn out.
Exactly. In 2 evenings.
Yeah. Yep. I've built things that I was passionate about and I've burned out. Like, I really need a drive.
Find great idea, execute it fast, launch it, distribute it through whatever channels. I mean, that's endless amount of work.
Yep. I always say building the product's the easy part. It's what you do once you have a product that's hard.
And once your product like growing, for example, while I was working at Eurocenter, our strategy, I think, changed 2 or 3 times, not because of us, because the market conditions were different. You know, now this part of the business is unprofitable. We need to switch the direction and go somewhere else. And no one is prepared for this. You can't it's not like with analytics. Once you install and forget, no, you need constantly tweak and adjust something.
Yep. And like your customers, where you're finding them might change, and what they need and want from you changes. So you're constantly having to shift even your current product. Like, I've rarely started an idea that hasn't shifted into a slightly different idea. Like, it might not be way off, but you never end up where you started. Everything slightly changes a little bit.
I have a very great example on this topic. This summer, I actually met one of the original WhatsApp developers, like this from the core team.
Oh, wow.
There were like, I think 5 of them. And essentially, I mean, we didn't talk much about Elixir or TP and Erlang and why they, it was, he was on vacations and we decided not to raise like work topics, but he explained to me how they came up with the WhatsApp idea. So they saw that iPhone became a thing, right? And once you do the message, like, I want to send a message to you, I don't know, are you taking a shower? Are you driving? Are you busy? And etc. So there was no indicator that you available. And what they originally developed, it was a simple app which would display your status and change it in the real time. So for example, you said like, I'm busy, right? And everyone see like that you are busy. And then when they launched the app, they saw, I think, some Korean people or from somewhere, like from Asia, started using it to send messages to each other because it was way cheaper than sending SMS, because iMessage was not a thing.
Well, yeah, and back then you had to pay per text.
Exactly, per like length of your message. And
that's right.
And iMessage was not a thing for the next, I don't know how many years, right? And then they were like, oh, okay, now we're doing a messenger app. Like the messenger, which you install probably the first app on your phone, was not intended to be a messenger at the beginning. So that was a crazy story. Like,
wild. And like, I think, I'm probably going to butcher this, but I think Slack had a crazy story too, where they were originally a game. There was some crappy game that they couldn't get off the ground. and they had like a messaging component that was like amazing, and they ended up scrapping the game. They were like running out of money, and they just took the chatting piece of it and turned it into a product. I'm sure I'm butchering that story, and there's a lot more to it, but that's the
Okay, now I
essentialness of it.
know why
Yeah.
Slack takes 4 GB of my memory.
Man, I haven't used Slack in a couple of years, and I don't miss it. I'm fully on Discord right now.
Yeah, I mean, for let's say non-professional, I use Discord as well, but Slack, I don't know, still quite a lot of communities.
Whenever,
right there.
well, and I feel like whenever every company still uses Slack unless you're making the decision not to, right? Like my company doesn't use Slack, but if I join someone else's team, I'd probably have to get Slack again.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think Discord as well is built on the Erlang, right?
I think like a little bit. I know some shifts have happened, but I know at least for a while they were Elixir, and then I think they also used a lot of Rust. And I can't remember now. No, I'm thinking of Bleacher Report. Bleacher Report ended up leaving Elixir because they had like a high level bot down to dev decision. Like they kind of like based their decision off of like a crazy higher ups choice and not overall performance. I don't really remember the whole story, but it's kind of weird.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Let them play.
Yeah. But I do believe Discord uses Elixir and Rust, and I don't know what else. They have quite a bit of technology in there.
Because for me, when I discovered Elixir, I think it was like 6, maybe even 7 years ago. I mean, I always had a challenge how to handle 10 million connections on a PHP server, like in the moment of time. The short answer, you cannot. And of course, you need to find the way how to optimize it, how to do the load balancing, doing job queues and event-driven systems out of this, and etc. And then one of like really greatest backend senior like I ever knew, he came to me and he was like, "Oh, did you know OTP?" I'm like, "What does it mean?" He was like, "Look, 35 years ago, one node developed it based on the, Joe Armstrong, based on the physics, and put it into virtual machine." And I was like, "What? Like 30 years ago? Oh my god!" And it still works great nowadays,
Yeah, it's wild.
All these abstractions and all this pain through which I had to go in almost every language implemented like on this level of code. That's crazy.
Yeah. And I think now that's 38 years ago.
Yeah. I think they started
1986 or 86. Yeah.
Like this.
That's wild. All these problems were solved, and we, like most people, haven't picked up on it, and they still pick up. They go and try to use JavaScript
on the back end.
Yeah.
Which is one-threaded by design.
Exactly. See, and you were worried we weren't going to hit an hour. We're over an hour.
No, I was like really worried. You're gonna ask only about Phoenix analytics. I was like,
dude, every time I guess I don't worry anymore, but I want to say, I forget what number this is. This is like my 26th podcast. I have always panicked. I was like, dude, what if, like, whenever we first start, I'll like notice the clock more, and I'm like, dude, we've only been talking for 10 minutes. How am I going to do this? And it always works out.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I honestly, I came up with this. I was doing a prototype, like coming back to our million ideas topic. A friend of mine, she's an accountant. She came to me. She has like her own firm, and she's running like accounting for other small firms. She was like, you know what? I really wanted to have a dashboard where I upload this Excel file, and I will have this nice graphs out of it. I was like, okay, let's see. And that's how I ended up like building a dashboard and displaying graphs. And then I was like, okay, so since I already have it and I wired everything together, where else I can put it?
There you go. So you had to build analytics.
Yeah, exactly.
You had no choice. You're like, I figured out the hard part.
No, I mean, front end. It was the hardest.
Well, I feel like the charting would be the hardest for me. But yeah.
And then I was, okay, tracing. Let's make a plug, which going to trace. Okay, what to use as a database. I remembered about the DuckDB, and that's it. So
Yeah, that's awesome. I probably wouldn't have thought about that, and I would have done everything in Postgres, and then I would have a really slow Phoenix app.
there is one feature which I have. So when you click per hour on some charts, it's going to like do the period per hour. And once I accidentally press it on a yearly view.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I had 24 multiplied by 365 and like displayed all of this. And when I was using DuckDB, I didn't notice that, I pressed this. But if you do it on the Postgres, it never loaded for me. So be careful.
That's crazy. Okay. Good to know.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm actually pretty excited. I do want to check out your project. I want to just throw it into my little hosting platform and kind of use it as my internal analytics for traffic and see how it works out.
If you all have 404s 500, it's not me.
Well, it's probably me.
But if you do, let me know, please.
For sure. I will. No, yeah, it looks cool. I like your documentation. It's exciting to see projects like this too kind of hit our ecosystem, because I think it's beneficial for bootstrap startups.
I mean, I really, really hope that maybe community gonna set a direction where it's supposed to go.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, I saw that I roughly got 400 downloads, like someone actually installed it from Hex.
That's wild. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, I really hope that maybe a bit more people gonna come to GitHub issues and not just write an issue that something doesn't work. I mean, that's for sure as well welcome.
Yeah.
But maybe just propose some ideas, features, or...
For sure. How have you found managing an open source project?
I mean, actually, the scariest part of it, because I had some open source projects in a Golang, and they were used at some moments in time, but then I abandoned them and forgot. It's the criticism, because always, when you make your code open source or you make a pull request somewhere, you only hear like, this is wrong. This must be better. Here I can make ON-1 optimized algorithm whatsoever. Or like, instead of this library, you had to pick this one. It has
the opinions fly in.
Yeah. And honestly, like with the Elixir community, up for now, I see that it's different. And people like much more mature, maybe. I don't know how to explain this, but for example, I saw the author of Live View, not Live View.
Oh yeah, VUE.
Exactly.
We were just my last. Who was it? Shoot.
Jakub, I think he's the author.
Yeah, I know, but we were talking about how it's the worst name ever, because LiveView already exists, and you can't talk about the library without correcting what library you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Just bad naming convention on accident, I think.
And what he posted, like Jose wrote to him on Twitter, like, great usage of this, super nice code or whatsoever. Where are you going to see it in the other communities? That someone writes to you and says, you made a great work, like this piece of code, these 2 lines is brilliant. Okay, the rest.
You never get compliments on your good stuff.
Exactly.
It's always just, it's like QA when you release a new feature or about to. You don't hear about what's working great. It's all about this is broken, this is broken, this is broken.
Exactly. Even though you added amazing spinner with the 2-second delay, no one going to
you make this beautiful animation and everyone talks about how slow it's loading instead of appreciating the animation.
You see? Exactly. And I think that's actually in my previous company where I was the CTO. And I always had conflicts between developers. And every time when I digged into like where the conflict started, it was a pull request. Like they started fighting over a pull request.
That's so funny.
And then I realized that actually on the pull request, you either receive like okay or like looks good to me, or you receive plenty of bad comments, right? Like
right.
And I see that in Elixir maybe it's a bit different. That's people try to be like nicer, like more people.
Well, the thing is with pull requests though, if it is good code, I don't want to have to read a bunch of comments complimenting it, because you just want to you don't want, like, if I see a comment, I think there's something I have to pay attention to. So I like personally, maybe I have thicker skin than most, but I just want those negative comments so I can just get through my pull request.
Yeah, but some people still take it very personal.
I remember when I first started, like pull requests and comments and QA, like when people find a bug in code you just wrote, I took it very personally, and I was, I'd be like, dang it, like like I can't believe these guys are attacking me like this. But at the end of the day, you're just trying to release a good product.
Yeah, I mean, or I was really afraid when I publish it, like everyone gonna say, "Oh my God, DuckDB, like, what a dump! Like, why he brought like another thing?"
Yeah.
But no, actually, lots of people were like, "Okay, it's like 25 times faster than to do it on my Postgres. Okay, it makes sense."
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, like when I saw that too, but also I was coming from not being familiar with it. So I was like, oh, that's weird. I wonder why. And then when I started like looking into it, I was like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's like in process database. So I promise you don't need to set up anything.
Yeah, no, that's awesome too, right? Like 3 lines of code and I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
I love it. All right. Well, I think this has been a good conversation. So if anyone has questions for Daniil, hit them now. It's a shame bad news is more profitable than good. Yeah, bad news is always more profitable. But anyways, for everyone that tuned in, thank you so much. And I hope you guys have a good weekend. And Daniil, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you for inviting, and great weekend to everyone. And hope, maybe one more time to be on this podcast.
Hey, you're welcome. You're welcome back anytime, man. It's been fun.
I need to develop something else now.
Hey, we can just come on and talk about anything. That's what I tell everyone. Let's just talk about.
Okay.
Yeah, just talk about anything in Elixir, and I think we're good to go. All right, guys. See you guys. Have a good weekend. Testing.